weekend, I went back to a cottage cafe that I built a couple weeks ago, and yeah, I made it into the home. I had the story that the cottage cafe was built by these two like lovebirds back in the day, and I kind of really loved that idea, so I wanted to make like what would have been their original home, and I had a lot of fun with it. I started off by just kind of like getting rid of some of the plant life, downsizing the home a little bit, because I could like imagine throughout the years that they just kind of added on to the place. And then, of course, this is like probably like 2 centuries later that the cafe would have been there, but I really liked the idea of just downsizing the trees a little bit. You saw me do that. They're like baby trees now, and that was super fun. And I eventually get rid of some of the plant life too, but for now, let's just get into it. I knew going into this build that I wanted to make it mainly like off the grid, so it was really frustrating at times because, like, yes, I put in lighting right now, but I eventually went to like all candles, and it's like, the candles just aren't that great in the game. But I mean, it totally makes sense to like the era that I was picturing these people being from. I went with a lot of quilted bed type things, a lot of like country style cartons, like the kitchen's entirely like old fashioned. It was just really fun. And I like, after I built this house, I actually made the Sims too, Ida and Ollie. They're so they're so cute, and I kind of like want to play with them instead of playing my not so berry challenge, because like I expressed last week, I'm so annoyed with playing that mother that I'm like, I've just been avoiding playing The Sims, which is not like me. But yeah, I had a good time just making their home. I like tried justifying making their bedroom a little bit bigger, but I was like, they probably wouldn't back in the day have a lot of space for that type of stuff. Their bedrooms wouldn't be that large. Like, arguably, even the parents wouldn't have had like a huge bedroom. I don't know if you guys ever read the Little House on the Prairie books. I loved those growing up. They were like some of my favorite things to read. But yeah, like the girls all shared bedrooms, and the parents didn't have that big of a bedroom either, and they usually had like a baby in there with them. So I tried going off of like that idea and that memory. And again, everything is functional off the grid in this house, which is pretty cool. I've never lived like that before in The Sims, so that would be super fun to play, a super fun aspect. I mean, I might get like bored in a couple days. But like for now, I used a lot of debug stuff too. Like this bathtub is debug. Like you can craft that if you have enough handy, what is that skill called? And if you're handy enough, your Sim's handy enough, eventually they can craft that bathtub. So I just kind of stole that from there because it's the only like bathtub that's actually functional off the grid, but I wanted to make sure they had a way to clean themselves. And that toilet's also functional off the grid, which is pretty cool. Oh, I'm just looking at the candles in that poor bedroom right now. It's so sad that they're so dim, but it's like, what can you do? These are supposed to be the prairie days. Prairie days did not include a lot of electrical work. And I do put a fridge and a stove in here, but both of those could have also been functional off the grid. I'm imagining like Ida and Ollie like came from probably a little bit of money, like maybe, like I said that Ollie built this cottage for them to live in, but I'm imagining like the land came from Ida's family, that they gave it to them as a wedding present for them to like build on and start their family home and different things like that, because that was really common back in the day, that the parents would give land to like the bride, or if they could, they would help start off their kid's life. So that's just kind of what I imagined here. Full on telling a story. I had so much fun. It's fun if you can go into a build telling the story, and it just gives you a lot more room to imagine as you're building who would be living in that home. And for me, like, this totally made sense to have like this young couple just starting out. He just built this like cute little cottage for them out in the middle of the woods, where there's like a garden in the back, because he spends the most of his day like gardening, and that's how they earn most of their money, is selling their crops. But it was fun. One thing that stressed me out so bad was this that's currently happening on the screen. The sizing down of these candles and then trying to slot it on, it kept floating no matter what I did, no matter what sheet I used, no matter what. Because I sized down the dresser because I really wanted that to fit in there, and it just didn't work. It was so frustrating. But I mean, if you want to live in this cabin and you need to dress your Sims, you can always use the mirror. There's no dressers at all anywhere. But I mean, that's not that big of a deal considering if you're going to be playing like maybe a decades like challenge. I know that was really popular in the Sims community this past year. There were a couple people who got into that, but yeah, if not, if you're just wanting to live off the grid, you can totally use that mirror, or maybe you can find a better space to put a dresser in. I couldn't feasibly do it in my mind. And I know that probably like closing off that space and having an entryway probably diminished a lot of space, but I just liked it. I liked the way it looked. I thought it made sense to me. Like, this could be like a sunroom type situation. Like, she'd be like, no, you're not bringing those muddy boots into this house. Like, I cleaned in here today. No. That's really what I imagined. So like that front room space is for, them to hang up their coats and different things when they come inside, take off their boots so it doesn't get in the rest of the house. When they have kids eventually too, they can go in there. I just thought that would make like the most sense, and that's really common in those older homes to have a little bit of an entryway sunroom space. And it was fun to build something this small, especially after last week when I had built that gigantic mansion for my twin Sims. Oh my gosh, I can't think big as well as I can think small. Building small in The Sims is so much more feasible. But that was fun. I'm glad that I had the country kitchen kit when I did this build, because none of the other like Sims 4 game cabinets and counters made sense for this type of a build. Like, if you are wanting to play a decades type build, or even game at all, you're probably going to want a ton of CC. As I was dressing my Sims, the females have a little bit more stuff that you can work with. Like, there's a couple different things from Get Famous and just like country type stuff that would work okay for doing the decades stuff. But for the men, there was next to nothing at all, which is really disappointing, because it's like, it seemed to me as I was going through the catalog that a lot of the things that the male Sims have that are like masculine dressing things are exactly the same. They're like exactly the same, just slightly different. There's subtle differences between each thing, and that's so frustrating. It's like, no wonder I hardly ever dress male Sims, because they just don't have a lot of options, which is boring. Like with the female Sims, there's a lot of different options and there's really cool swatches and random things, but like the male stuff, just not there. Unfair sexism in The Sims. But I eventually opted out for not having cabinets just because I thought that made more sense. Again, I was keeping in mind with like the prairie days, and just having built this home, they probably wouldn't have a lot even if they came from money, just because that's how things were back in the good old days. A lot of things were just smaller sized, even if there was an established amount of money. But yeah, that's again what I kept in mind the whole entire time. I wish I had kept the light on. There we go. I was gonna say, I can't believe I built that long without a light. But I wanted to add like a little kid room in here, at least, just something smaller to at least have, because I believe that they would be definitely planning to have kids, if like soon, probably, just because that's like back in the day, like I said, they just got to work pretty dang quick. So even though they are a recently married couple, I think that it would be completely normal for them to have just an extra little space for a kid, or even for maybe a guest or something like that to stay in just in case. But it was super cute. I love how like small it is. It would be so sad to live in there, but it's like so cute. I love this cottage so much. Like, it'd be so cute just to go see something like this. I love touring historical sites. It's super fun. It reminds me of like my family personally, and the different stories I've heard about them, my family history. So that's just kind of, again, what I was thinking of the whole entire time. My ancestors were pioneers, and they crossed the plains and they built homes like this once they came and established themselves in Utah. So it was fun to like think of that, and also use a lot of yellow stuff that I normally don't use in The Sims, just because usually it doesn't quite fit the context. But I feel like all the floral couches, the old-timey looking curtains, the plaid stuff, it totally makes sense to be in this kind of situation, because that's what they had back in the prairie days. So it was super fun. Also to use like some stuff that I don't normally get to use either, like these shelves. I think that like Ollie could have totally made those for their home. And I can imagine Ida being like a huge reader and just wanting to read all the time. One thing that I cracked myself up as I was doing this is I had to use a lot of cheats in order to do this. Just control nining to like raise those books up and raise everything up on those shelves. And it's kind of annoying that some of those things just don't automatically slot the shelves, because it's like, what's the purpose of having shelves available to you if you don't make items out automatically slot to them, or there's only like a certain amount of items that can slot to them? That just doesn't make sense to me. But hey, I'm not a video game maker, so who am I to say or judge or do anything about it? I'm just play the game, right? Oh, and this thing also cracked me up. It was a debug thing, but as soon as I placed it, it was no longer the swans every single time. I was like, well, I guess that's not happening. We'll just keep the cute little lovebirds in there. It was fun to go through some of the debug stuff that I normally don't use in my builds. I'm not as familiar with debug as some other builders are, but it was fun to include that kind of stuff just to add those touches to make it kind of look like it was lived in and give it that little more homey type feel than what is available to you in just the packs. The dining room table stressed me out so bad because you have to have enough room for them to be able to pull out the chair to sit and also use the fridge. And the only counter space I have that works is the one to the right of the stove. So it's like, oh man, I don't want to block this off because my Sims are going to be like, I can't cook, I can't sit, I can't, no. Like, Sims are so whiny, get over yourselves. But I think that would be, they'd be able to use the fridge, use the counter, and then also sit at the dining room table. It's really funny going back and like watching this too, the amount of candles I just had to put in to make it look normally just bright, because these windows added nothing to this space. Absolutely nothing. Besides, they look great, don't get me wrong, but they didn't brighten up the room at all. And that was super frustrating, because it's like I'm trying to build where they wouldn't be using electricity, and I like physically can't do it properly without adding millions of candles everywhere. But again, I went outside and just kind of I added plant life too, just to make the garden look a little bit more realistic. I think that I couldn't justify taking it all down. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to like build a home around a garden, but I mean, who cares? It could be like a plot of land that had stuff growing there already and they digged up a lot of it. Maybe there was like a wild patch of like flowers and stuff like that out there, and then they just tore it up to build the home and then planted more as they finished up building the home, and just to make it look nice. I added a gardening space for Ollie, because he, again, that's how I imagine them making the most of their money, and he has the freelance botanist, I think is what I gave him, aspiration. I don't know, whatever one deals with the most with plants, because I thought that would work the best. And he loves being outside anyway, and so does Ida. Ida loves the outdoors, so I wanted to make kind of a nice space that made sense to the decade. I used the gallery to find some plants to put in, which is super useful if you didn't know that you could do that, because it gives you like, people build rooms and put like their plants in there, so you can like actually download perfect plants. So if you don't know, like in the Sims, plants have ratings and you grow and you work with them over time, and as your Sim gets better at doing that kind of stuff, they can get it to be like perfect quality, which those plants are worth more money and they taste better. So I just went in and found some perfect quality vegetables to have them garden. I might change my mind about the different things I want them to have later, but I think that just makes the most sense that they could totally use it to have with dinners as well. And then, just have to make money with, and it was super fun. I gave them a handyman's tools as well, just skill building things that would make sense. They have some fun things in there for like books and stuff like that, and it was just super fun. And again, I went back and deleted things that wouldn't make sense to be there. Like, it wouldn't make sense if they just moved in to have like things growing on the house quite yet. So that's what I really went through and deleted, just to make it like make more sense with the story I was going with. I had so much fun doing this build. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing weekend.